Welcome everyone to our talk on the owls of Niagara. I am going to be talking about the species of owls you can expect to find in the Niagara region and surrounding area. In Ontario, we have 11 native species of owls, 7 of which are regularly found in Niagara, although some more so in the winter months, and 1 species that rarely shows up but is considered an endangered native species, with only a few thought to still remain in the province. We will also be discussing identification features, habitat, ethical owling practices, signs of stress, and how we can help owls. The species of owls found in Ontario are great horned owl, eastern screech owl, barred owl, long-eared owl, short-eared owl, snowy owl, northern saw-whet owl, barn owl, great gray owl, northern hawk owl, and boreal owl. The last 3 of which are not common visitors to the Niagara region, although there are several records of them showing up. One of the most common species of owl found in the Niagara region is the great horned owl. Although not the easiest owl to find during the day while it's roosting, most people who do have an encounter with them will hear them at night. They are the ones responsible for the classic hoo 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 call. They are a larger, thick-bodied owl with big ear tufts on top of their head. There are several variations of their coloring, but in Niagara we typically have owls that are mottled brown and gray, with reddish-brown faces and a white patched throat of varying degrees. You can find these owls in so many different areas. Some of the areas they inhabit are city parks, deciduous and evergreen forests, and orchards. They tend to like locations where they have lots of cover to hide during the day with wide open areas to hunt at night. This is what makes Niagara such an amazing place to find them. The most common species we have in Niagara is the eastern screech owl. Anywhere you can find trees, you will also likely find eastern screech owls. If you ever heard an eerie trill at night and wonder what it may be, there's a very good chance it was an eastern screech owl. These tiny owls like to hide out in the holes of trees and any other nook or cranny they can come across. These guys will also readily use backyard nesting boxes. They come in 3 color variations, red or rufous, gray, and sometimes even brown. They have vertical streaks and dark barring. Their eyes are yellow, but often in the daytime you cannot see this as they will have them almost completely closed to help with their amazing camouflage. They can be extremely hard to find despite how common they are, so a good tip for finding them is to listen to the other birds in the forest. Often when birds like chickadees and blue jays discover them, they will sound alarm calls. I have had many screech owls found for me by other birds. Next we have a favorite owl among many bird watchers and photographers, the snowy owl. These are a very large owl, in fact the largest owl by weight we have in North America. These owls have very large yellow eyes. Males are typically all white where females are white with black barring. Caution should be given to those that attempt to sex these owls, though, as both juvenile males and females will both be white with black barring. There are some indications on juvenile males that do help figuring out the sex, but there is a ton of overlap, so without getting the weight of the bird and its wing chord measurements, it's almost impossible to tell. Snowy owl numbers are plummeting, and without getting into too much detail about that in this presentation, we do have a lot to be concerned about. Numbers have gone from an estimated 300,000 birds a decade ago to an estimated 30,000 birds now. These owls can be found in the winter in the Niagara region anywhere that resembles the Arctic tundra where they are from. Look for them in open farm fields, on telephone poles, or by the water hunting ducks. Barred owls are our next owl that we can see in the Niagara region. This has not always been the case though. It's only in recent years that the barred owl has started to make a big push on expanding its range into Niagara. We even have several documented nest sites. It used to be quite rare to see a barred owl around the region, but it is slowly becoming more common. The barred owl is a medium to large sized owl with dark brown eyes and a yellow bill. It also has brown and white striped plumage. You can typically find these owls in mature forests near water such as a river, often in the same habitat as a great horned owl, which is the most serious predatory threat to the barred owl. Long-eared owls are a species of owl that come to our area during the winter months. There are records of nesting and year-round birds, although it is not that common. They are a medium-sized, skinny-looking bird with orange facial discs and long ear tufts, much like the great horned owl, for which they are often mistaken. Though with long-eared owls, their ear tufts tend to be more to the center of the top of their head in comparison. Long-eared owls are extremely secretive and masters of camouflage. In the winter months, they tend to communal roost in larger numbers, which can make them a little easier to find. They can be found in large pine stands or shelter beds near grassland or pastures. Short-eared owls are a species of concern that we often see in the Niagara region during the winter months. You can also find these owls in grasslands and pastures, either roosting on the ground or in cedar trees nearby. They are a medium-sized bird with a round head and tiny ear tufts that are very difficult to see unless the bird is feeling stressed. Its body is heavily streaked and the owl has bright yellow eyes surrounded by dark black eye patches. They are a species that nests on the ground, usually on a raised mound. The best time to view these owls are during dawn and dusk when they are the most active. Northern saw-whet owls are a personal favorite of mine. They tend to migrate to the Niagara region, typically starting at the beginning of October on their way to the northern United States where they spend the winter months. Many do stop over and winter in the Niagara region though. They are a small owl, in fact the smallest owl we have in Ontario, with a round head, no ear tufts, bright yellow eyes, and a mottled brown and white body. They have fine white streaks on their head and a white V between their eyes. You can often find them in riparian areas, roosting in dense stunted evergreen trees at or just above eye level close to the bark of the tree. Barn owl is going to be the last species I talk about for the Niagara region. Though this owl is almost completely extirpated from the province and the chances of finding one extremely thin, your best chances of seeing one would be in the Niagara region, although they have also shown up in other places in the province. Barn owls are an endangered species in Ontario mostly due to habitat loss and the fact that they have an extremely hard time surviving the winter months due to a lack of feathers on their tarsus, which leads to frostbite. Historically in the past, barn owls did have a presence in Ontario, but that was way back when most people were using wooden barns for their livestock and the owls had a warm place to roost. Within the last couple of years, there have been arguably more barn owl sightings due to our milder winters that we have been experiencing, although I still do not see a comeback in the future for the barn owl. Outside of Canada, barn owls are one of the most common owls found on all continents except Antarctica, with up to 46 different races of barn owl described worldwide. Barn owls are a medium-sized owl with a white harp-shaped face. Their upper body is cinnamon and gray, while their lower body is white. Next, we're going to have a brief talk about stress signs and ethical owl viewing. In the winter time in the Niagara region, we can often find northern saw-whet owls and long-eared owls in riparian areas adjacent to a stream or a creek. I personally have the best luck looking for these owls in white pine trees. Right here, we have a long-eared owl roosting. Now, what you do after you have found the owl really makes all the difference. Sometimes they can look quite stressed when you first find them. The best thing you can do is to back away and try to observe from a distance. Keep the limit of time you are there to a minimum and try not to make too many repeat visits. A few years ago, I was watching some recently fledged great horned owls from the road with my binoculars when I noticed that some crows chased one of the fledglings and the fledgling ended up in a bush stuck upside down. I waited for a little bit to see if he could right himself and get out, and he didn't, so I made my way out into the field and took the owl and placed him back in the forest. I thought this would be a great opportunity to take a video of what an extremely stressed owl looked like, so I set up my tripod with my camera and left it on the owl and left the area for some time. The owl here, you can see, is doing a gular pant while also making himself very tall and skinny. These are two things that are very common with extremely stressed owls. Though sometimes with the guller pants, they will also do that if it's very hot outside. A couple years ago, we had a northern saw-whet owl roosting just outside the door from us. I decided to set up a camera and film the owl calmly roosting. You can see here the owl's normal posture until a squirrel goes by and the owl becomes alert and makes himself skinny. He then realizes the squirrel is not a threat and returns to his normal posture. The way that owls react to stress from species to species is very different as well, so it's always good to research the species that you are going to be trying to view before going to view them. For example, a long-eared owl is most likely going to flush and fly away whenever it is spotted, so it's always best to not get too close to them. Whereas a northern saw-whet owl is likely to stay in the exact same spot and not move at all. This leads a lot of people to believe that the saw-whet is calm and okay with their presence. That's why it's such a good idea to view their posture. A saw-whet owl will likely close its eyes and try and blend in. That's its defense mechanism. It's not going to fly away. If you're getting a saw-whet to fly away, then you're getting way, way too close. Now, we've spoken about how owls go skinny when scared, but sometimes they will do the complete opposite and get as large as possible. They'll fan out their feathers and lower their heads to make themselves look much bigger and try and scare away the threat. This may also be accompanied by hissing and bill snaps. Although they are not as common in our area of Niagara, some of our northern owl species, such as the northern hawk owl and great gray owl, are typically a little more tolerant of humans around them. This isn't to say that they don't also have stress signs, so I will repeat that it is always great to research the species that you are going to view to learn their stress signs and how to deal with them. So remember to be on the lookout for an owl that is either making itself very big or very skinny, as it's going to be very stressed. Also watch out for bill snaps and hissing, and make sure you're not flushing the owl from its day roost position. Our next topic of discussion is going to be the very unethical practice of baiting owls for viewing or photography. Owl baiting is a very controversial and often heated topic among birders and photographers. Often the use of live mice or even fake lures like cat toys are used to bait in owls for better photos. Many prominent photographers and wildlife photography organizations frown on the practice, and many magazine editors and photo contests, Audubon being among them, now prohibit photos of baited birds. Owls do not need the food. These birds are accustomed to hunting for their own food, and in the vast majority of cases are in perfectly good health. An injured or unwell owl is not going to benefit from a handout either. In those cases, food can actually do more harm than good, and a professional owl rehabilitator should be called and consulted. If you suspect that an owl is injured or unwell, please just call a licensed wildlife rehabilitator. In Niagara or anywhere in Ontario for that matter, if you find an injured owl, please contact the Owl Foundation, which is located in Jordan Station between Grimsby and St. Catharines. There are some concerns that pet store mice may pass pathogens or parasites to wild owls. Pet store mice are not the same as wild mice. An even bigger reason not to feed wild owls is how quickly they can become habituated to humans. Many northern species of owls have little natural fear of people to begin with, and feeding them can quickly cause them to associate humans with food. This can bring them dangerously close to people who may harm them, especially when they leave their wintering grounds and begin migrating back north. It can also lure them to locations like busy roadsides where there's a risk of collisions with vehicles. Owls have little to no experience with cars. In fact, almost half of all injured owls brought into rehabilitation centers are victims of vehicle strikes. So, what are some things that we can do to help protect owls? The first way I would like to bring up is one of the most important. Please stop using poison to take care of your pests around your house. The poison rarely ever stops at just the pests. The following is a pretty graphic video of a great horned owl who has consumed a poisoned mouse. It's only a few seconds, so look away if this may disturb you. Another thing to consider that helps out a lot of animals, including owls, is installing a chimney cap on top of your chimney. Sometimes animals like eastern screech owls fall inside people's chimneys. In this case, this little screech owl had all of his feathers burned off by doing just that and had to be in rehabilitation for several months before all of his feathers grew back and he could be released. Another often overlooked threat to owls is the use of soccer nets in the summer months. A lot of times people leave soccer nets up all day and night. This can be a huge hazard to owls as they hunt at night, often flying into the nets and getting entangled. This can cause the owl to get quite injured, including broken wings. If you could please take down your soccer nets when you're done using them, we can avoid this, as many rehabilitation centers get calls regarding trapped owls in the summer months. One of the leading causes of bird fatalities, including owls, is window strikes. Something simple that everyone can do from home to help alleviate this issue is putting up window decals, much like the ones in this photo. Oftentimes, when a bird hits your window and is dazed, after they recover, they fly away. What many people don't know is that most times those birds later die of internal injuries from window strikes. If you find any bird that has hit your window, it is always best to contact a rehabilitation facility for advice. Arguably, the number one killer of birds next to habitat loss is outdoor and feral cats. This is a topic that could have a talk all of its own, though. In short, an easy and effective way to help our owls and other birds out is to keep your cats indoors. As often as I have come across owls that have been attacked and killed by cats, it also works the other way. You want to protect your cats from owls, like this great horned owl sitting here in this photo. Be cautious while driving at night, as owls will frequently hunt at the sides of the roads. Also, try not to throw your organic waste out your car window, as this attracts more rodents to the side of the roads. Remember, up to 40% of all owls that are brought into rehabilitation facilities have been hit by cars. Securing your chicken coop will keep both big and small owls away from your chickens. This one is a little more graphic, but please completely do away with leg hold traps. They're incredibly cruel to the animal that they are trying to catch, but sometimes they also catch the animal that you are not trying to catch. One of the biggest threats to owls is habitat loss. So naturally, one of the biggest things you can do to help owls is advocate for a reduction in habitat loss. Many of our grassland species are in rapid decline due to habitat loss, such as short-eared owls, long-eared owls, and barn owls. Also, please consider advocating for a reduction in land clearing. Leave those dead trees up when safe to do so, as they provide nesting locations for many birds and mammal species. Lastly, if you would like to help owls, consider supporting the Owl Foundation. The Owl Foundation was founded by Kay and Larry McKeever in the 1970s and has been saving injured and orphaned owls ever since. It's located in Jordan Station and is open to accept injured and orphaned owls 365 days a year. The Owl Foundation is a not-for-profit run completely off donations and receives no monetary assistance from the government. Please enjoy the following video that shows some of the fostering work the Owl Foundation does. In the video, you will see an orphaned great horned owlet being introduced to a foster mom who will raise the owlet until it's ready for release.